you share precious time with us to have these meetings. So very grateful for that. So we will go ahead. Margaret, what I will need is if you'll be able to put up the opening prayer, because you're always so great to have it sitting there on our desk. You think I'd know it off by heart by now, but I don't. So we will start with our opening prayer. If you will all join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We come together in hope from different community groups, answering the same call to service, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in gratitude for the trust placed in us, for the opportunity to serve, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in respect, aware of our diversity, willing to work for the good, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in awe of the wonder and beauty of each of God's children, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in God's name, and as we work together toward the same goal, each piece of the puzzle begins to fit neatly into place, creating a breathtaking picture of love, compassion, courage, and grace. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Alton, as we know it today,
is rich in the history and modern traditions
of many First Nations and the Métis,
from the lands of the Anishinaabe
to the Attawandaron,
the Haudenosaunee,
and the Métis.
These lands surrounding the Great Lakes
are steeped in Indigenous history.
As we gather today on these treaty lands,
our Catholic social teachings
call us in solidarity
with our Indigenous brothers and sisters
to honor and respect
the four directions, lands, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors
that walked before us.
All of these wonderful elements of creation exist,
gifted to us by our Creator God. We acknowledge and thank
the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation
for being stewards of this traditional territory.
Great. Thank you so much, Margaret. So just a reminder, as we all see, that the meeting this evening is online. We had some tech issues in our boardroom. And so thanks to technology, we're able to still come together and meet. The meeting this evening is being recorded. Please feel free, as you do right now, to have your cameras on. It's much nicer than me talking to myself. So please keep your cameras on if you feel comfortable doing that. I would just ask that you keep your mics muted until you would like to speak. And if you can use the hands up function in Teams, just so that I don't miss you, that would be super helpful. I don't want someone to be sort of sitting there waving and I can't see you and then I don't get to you. So if you can just use the hands up function, that would be wonderful. So just moving on to item 1.2, which is the approval of the agenda. Everybody will have received a copy of the agenda in their meeting package for this evening. I don't know if anybody has any questions at all on the agenda. Okay, so seeing none, could I get someone to move to approve the agenda? Go ahead and put your mic off for the, okay,
I'll
Trish,
move it.
thank you. I was gonna say, just shout out for this one. All right, so moved by Trish. Can I get someone to second that?
I'll second it.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Okay, seconded by Rhonda. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 2 is declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest this evening? Okay. Seeing none, great. So moving on to item number 3, which is our presentation. So we do have one presentation this evening on post-secondary deaf and hard of hearing presentation. Denise, I am going to pass it over to you to lead us off, introduce your team, let us know who's talking, what we're talking about, and take it away.
Sure, thanks, Brenda. So earlier this year, the team came to me and requested that they be able to do a special project looking at supporting our students transitioning into post-secondary. And there was a concern, I think, that we'd been starting to hear from some of our graduates that maybe some of the services that we had anticipated were available in colleges and universities weren't actually as easy to access as we had thought. So Sandra Costantini is with us tonight, as is Vanessa. I don't see Vanessa. Vanessa, you here?
She should be on here.
I'm here.
Yep.
Hi.
There we are.
Oh.
And here, yeah, Vanessa Buntiak. Both have sort of taken the lead on this project, and they did present their findings to our department heads a couple of weeks ago, and they are really pleased to share the information with you tonight. We have found it incredibly useful. It was a great project and time very well spent, and I think you'll be very interested in the information that they're sharing. So thank you, Vanessa and Sandra.
Thanks, Denise.
So see Denise, that, Sandra?
Sorry, Margaret?
Can you see it?
Yeah, perfect. Great. So Vanessa's going to start, and then I'll go on halfway through.
Okay. Okay, so thanks everybody for having us today. Denise, you did a great job of introducing the project. You kind of you stole the show there. I had a whole paragraph about what I was going to say about why we did that and how it was approved and all that, but I'll skip over that. And I'll just tell you a little bit, just give you an overview of what we're going to tell you about today. So if you can go, yeah, go ahead to the next slide. That's perfect. So, so here's a quick overview. We're going to give you some background information about the reason why we decided to dedicate so much time to this initiative this year. We're going to look at what post-secondary institutions that we contacted. There were a number of them. What kinds of questions we had for them. How were the post-secondary institutions similar or different in terms of what they could offer? Some interesting and unexpected discoveries. What have we concluded as a result of all this research that our deaf and hard of hearing students really need to know before embarking on their post-secondary journeys and beyond? And how will our services change as a result of this project? So specifically, what topics must be covered and discussed with our grade 11 and grade 12 students specifically in order to prepare them. Okay, so as Denise mentioned, we really took on this project as a result of feedback that we received from previous students from the board. We really maintain a close relationship with our deaf, hard of hearing students well after they leave our system. As some of you may know, many of them actually come back to our annual deaf, hard of hearing picnic every year. I think Sandra, is it right, Sandra, that you presented a little bit on that to this group of people earlier in the year, I think? I believe you told us that you did.
Yeah, we did talk about it in
you did talk about
previous
the
presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. So they come back to that picnic, and we're really lucky. We get to hear back from previous students kind of about what's been going on in their life after leaving the system. And one thing that kept coming up was how challenging that transition was for them in terms of accessing services to support their needs at a post-secondary level. So once we started looking into this a little more ourselves, it did seem like what many of the websites listed as their available services and accommodations were sometimes not in line with the reports we received from students themselves about what was actually made available to them upon arrival. And this was obviously concerning to hear, that some of the publicly stated accommodations were not always in line with what was actually being offered at the institution. So, we continued to research ourselves, and we did notice discrepancies between various institutions as well. In our preliminary research, it really became clear that there was no universal standard for how universities or colleges were ensuring accommodations for deaf, hard of hearing students. And we felt as a department that it was important if we were going to be guiding our students in making informed decisions about post-secondary institutions, and ensuring that they were as prepared as possible to attend these institutions, that we better reach out to them ourselves and get a little bit more information. So we did. Okay, so here you can see a list of institutions that we got in touch with. There are several universities and colleges, most of which, actually all of which were local. So places that our students would be most likely to apply for or attend. You can see here that not all institutions either got back to us or were willing to participate in a meeting with us, but fortunately many of them were. So you'll see here, I'll just make a note, George Brown has a number of colleges listed under it, and the reason we organized it that way on the slide was just to show that George Brown is actually responsible for allocating the interpreter fund for all the universities, or sorry, the colleges listed below it. So we'll get a little bit more, give you a bit more information on the interpreter fund later on in the presentation, but that's just a note on why that's listed that way. Okay, so what kind of information did we want to get from each institution? Well, we made sure to send out questions to each college prior to our virtual meeting, so they had plenty of time, of course, to come prepared with as accurate an answer as possible. Generally, this is the kind of information, though, that we were after. We wanted to know the process from acceptance of their offer right through to the first day and beyond as it relates to accessibility services. We wanted to get a better sense of what accommodations each institution had available for deaf, hard of hearing students. So we'll get into more detail about this later in the presentation, but things like FM systems, captioning, note-taking, interpreters, audio recordings of lectures, and extended time were kind of the primary ones that we discussed. We wanted to know how or when professors were notified of accommodations each semester and how they were supported by the institution in ensuring that those accommodations were able to be met. So, you know, example like access to closed captioned videos, how could a professor get support with that from the institution if they needed to? What responsibilities would the student have, specifically like gathering documents and activating accommodations for tests and exams? And we also asked a lot about funding as it relates to OSAP and BSWD, specifically for funding things like FM equipment, sorry. Okay, so not surprisingly, there were many similarities amongst the institutions. As we went from interview to interview, there were definitely a lot of repetition in what we were hearing. And this was great news because it gave us some really concrete, for sure, information that we could offer all our students, regardless of where they were planning on attending. So, for example, every place we spoke with, of course, had some kind of accessibility department. There was a strong message from all the institutions that in order to guarantee that the student would be set up on day one of their classes, that they reach out to this department as soon as possible. Basically, as soon as they accept their offer, they'd really like to hear from them right away. And this was especially true if sign language interpreting was required. They really needed a lot of time to ensure that the accommodations would be available. Once the students registered with accessibility services, they all seemed to be assigned to some kind of accessibility advisor or counselor or consultant. They had a different name depending on the institution. And this person was their go-to contact throughout their academic career for all things related to accommodating their needs. And of course, if set up with plenty of notice, all accommodations should take effect within the first day of classes. Although we will note that we did hear from some students that things like peer note taking didn't necessarily always start as quickly as they would have liked. So that was disappointing to hear, but most institutions claimed that it would be. Okay. Some of the major differences we found from one institution to the next were, for example, how they chose to use the interpreter fund. So Sandra will talk to you guys a little bit more about the interpreter fund in another slide. Also, how professors were notified of accommodations also seemed to vary quite a bit from institution to institution. For some, the students had to send the letters of accommodations themselves, while others required the students to go into some kind of online portal where they had to activate which accommodations they wanted for which subjects at the beginning of the semester. Some institutions had accessibility, had the accessibility office actually send the letters out themselves, so this really varied a lot. And there was also some variation in terms of the level of assistance an institution was prepared to offer a student who did not qualify for OSAP. And that was, you know, for funding their, like an FM system or a laptop, they weren't all as equally prepared to step in if there wasn't OSAP funding. I think Sandra is going to take it from here.
Yeah, I just activated my mic, so hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so we were fortunate enough to come across some new information with our very first institution who we spoke with, which was McMaster, and they brought our attention to the Interpreter Fund. So that was great because then we were able to add that to our list of questions for all the other institutions. So the Interpreter Fund, which we found rather interesting, it is a ministry funded. It is ministry funded, and it's available actually to all post-secondary institutions in Ontario, so all colleges and universities. And it is to be used for things such as computerized note-taking for live captions and notes. It's to be used for CART, which is a communication access real-time translation. And that is a service where the individual takes verbatim notes for a student, and then it's up to the student to summarize and pick out the important information from those notes. It can also be used for ASL interpreters, deaf-blind interpreters. It can be used for Note-Taking Express, which we were informed that the prof would upload a recording of a lecture to a system, and then there's a note taker who would then summarize the notes of the lecture and send it to the student at a later date. So these are all services under the Interpreter Fund umbrella, which was news to us, but now we can at least inform our students of it in case some of these accommodations aren't being met. They can inquire about the Interpreter Fund. So what we were told is that the institution would pay for the services, and then they would submit receipts for reimbursement. And none of the institutions that we spoke to had mentioned any difficulty receiving the funds from the ministry, which was great. And then going back to that slide that Vanessa had talked about for George Brown. So George Brown, we were told, is responsible for and would look after any of the services that fall under the Interpreter Fund umbrella for DHH students who attend George Brown, of course, as well as the other 4 colleges, which were Centennial, Humber, Sheridan, and Seneca. The other interesting fact was around OSAP. Just learning a little bit more of the details in and around OSAP. So when students apply for OSAP with a disability, they apply and submit their OSAP disability verification form, which they need to complete in hopes that they either receive OSAP to help support their post-secondary, or just to at least receive that $1 needed to qualify for BSWD, which is the bursary for students with disabilities. So this bursary would be used to purchase things such as an FM system, a computer that they may need for note-taking, could be also used for video captioning services. Some institutions, unfortunately, if the student did not qualify for OSAP and therefore not qualify for BSWD, some of the accommodations were not offered to the students, which was unfortunate. And then we also discovered that other students, other institutions would actually assist in finding the funds needed to purchase the equipment that the student needed and wasn't able to purchase on their own, which was great. Now there is a chance, like I said, that students are denied, but we will encourage the students to apply every year because things can obviously change. Okay, then next slide. So around FM systems, first and foremost, we need to ensure that our students are aware that their high school FM system does not follow them to post-secondary, which some of them think it does. So we need to talk to them about that. And also, we do have several students that in high school are not using their FM system, but they may realize the importance of them in post-secondary. So therefore, students need to know the make and model of their FM systems and what is available. Some of the institutions do have FM systems available, but they may be older and not compatible with the students' newer hearing aids and cochlear implants. So students need to know about this as well. If the student is looking to purchase their own FM system, if they did qualify for OSAP and therefore the BSWD fund, they can use that fund to purchase their own FM system needed for post-secondary. If they didn't, then their audiologist will help the family with such funding as ADP, which is Assistive Device Program. And then that student would need to pay the remaining amount for their FM system. However, like I said prior, some institutions will help the student if they cannot afford the remaining amount of the FM system in looking elsewhere within the university for the funds. And other institutions had simply said it's up to the student to purchase the FM system. The next slide. So what do our DHH students need to know? So support obviously is heavily student driven. Therefore, the students need to take ownership of their learning and advocate for what they need, which we are all trying to encourage them to do in high school in preparation of this. For the institution, parents can sign the necessary documents to advocate on their child's behalf, so that is possible. However, we've also heard that students need to be aware that even if these documents are signed, they don't always communicate with the parents. It is up to the child at certain institutions. The documents that the students need, many institutions have their own accessibility forms that students need to complete, most of which are extremely specific and target the students' functional limitations. So functional limitations, I will delve deeper into that on the next slide, which is extremely important to note. Around the audiogram, some of the institutions who have their own accessibility forms for the students to complete. These forms are to be completed by a doctor, a physician, or an audiologist, who then can indicate a permanent hearing loss. Once the institution sees that it's a permanent disability or a permanent hearing loss, some of them had said that they don't require an audiogram because they just said, quite frankly, they don't know how to read it. So having a physician say it's permanent is sufficient. And then other institutions said that they can for sure submit their audiograms, but students need to know that they're not always sent from high school. So if if it is required, they would need a copy of that. Students would then register with the accessibility department and book a meeting with their advisor as soon as they have accepted their offer. The sooner the better. And then they would meet to determine the list of accommodations. The student then in consultation with their advisor can add, delete, change their accommodations at any time throughout the year. And they were all very open to this because given the fact that students have never lived in the post-secondary environment before, they may encounter things that they didn't know they needed. So they want students to feel comfortable in booking appointments so they can add, change, delete at any time. And like Vanessa had said, not all accommodations they will need for every class. Also, the reduced course load, it doesn't affect staying in residence. So 3/5 is considered part-time, and you are, for a lot of institutions, you can't be in residence if you're part-time. But if you do have a permanent disability, 3/5 is considered full-time with the university and with OSAP. And the other thing that our students need to know is the institutions have so many technology experts to assist our students in tutorials. They'll meet with the student, go over any of the equipment, any of the accommodations regarding tech. if the student is unfamiliar, and go over it as many times as the student needs to help them with that. So it's just up to our students to get in touch with them. Okay, the next slide. I just want to delve deeper into the functional limitations. So this is a section that is on a lot of the accessibility forms that we encountered from different institutions. And it covers a lot of specific details about the students' learning environment, how their different accommodations that they need throughout their university and schooling, such as participating in classroom discussion. I know the slide's a little small probably, so it's a little hard to read, but on this first one, there's a section on participating in classroom discussion and group work, and the physician or audiologist completing it has to put none, mild, moderate, severe, or unknown at the top. So it could be around our students may have challenges in several groups when students are chatting at the same time and being able to follow and focus on what is being said, then processing what is being said, and therefore they may not be participating as much as other students. So that could be a challenge for a lot of our students. On the second column, there's a couple at the top that listening fatigue would come into play in those with regards to focus and concentration and cognitive processing of information, especially if it's a long lecture or class. So our students, several of the institutions did say that their accommodations, regardless of their hearing loss, would weigh heavily on a lot of these functional limitations and what is indicated on this form. So therefore, we need to inform students of this, and perhaps our students need to make an appointment with their physician or audiologist and actually go through the form with them. So because that way they can explain how they feel in those particular environments for their physician or audiologist to complete it accurately. Because if the institutions look at this heavily and for their accommodations, then anything on this form that is not completed correctly, or if they've indicated none when that's not accurate, could affect some of the accommodations that they receive. So the next slide. So what came out of all of our research and inquiry? So as a team, we are planning to meet with our grade 11 and 12 students to discuss several different areas of importance to better prepare them for their university and college years. So in grade 11, we will be looking to talk to them more specifically about their accommodations, what they are, what they need to be successful, going through their IEP, and also looking at the list of functional limitations to get them thinking of a lot of the areas on those lists, just so they can have that in the back of their mind. Also going through and developing questions that they can ask their audiologists around the make and model of their hearing aids and cochlear implants, the different programs and features, as well as the FM system and the different options available. As well as review, we send out an email to the high school teachers each semester going over the impact of that student's hearing loss, as well as some of the accommodations. So going over that letter with the students in preparation for the letter that goes to their prof in post-secondary. And then around the grade 12 meetings, some of which would be similar to the grade 12 or the grade 11, but just going a little bit further in depth. So looking at possibly having a meeting with the student, the parent, the educational audiologist, and ourselves to discuss post-secondary and some of the equipment, looking at different resources and bursaries that may be available for our students. Again, going over the functional limitations, because like I said, a lot of the individuals we spoke to said that that is very, very important in determining the accommodations that the student would receive. Going through some academic accommodations such as audio recording of lecture, because that's an accommodation that we don't typically use in high school. However, in post-secondary, students could, there's a student who commented about a class, and it was a short lecture. The prof was going over a lot of material and how it applied to real life situations. And in the class, that student's like, yes, it makes complete sense, completely understand, then going back and studying it and getting confused and second guessing and then not thinking that they don't actually comprehend. So if audio recording the lecture, they could listen to those explanations back 2, 3, 4, however many times they need, because a lot of our students do need to hear it over and over in order to fully comprehend the material, process it. So having that lecture available to them would be great. The other one is stop time, because that's also an accommodation that we don't use typically in high school. High school, you can have double time to complete an exam or a test, whereas in post-secondary, a lot of institutions don't give double time. It could be an extra 10 minutes a section. It could be 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes total. So having that stop time where they can stop the time, take a little breather, and then start the time again. Captioning, which is very important to a lot of our students in order to fully comprehend the content. Having the prof repeat and paraphrase answers from peers is typically an accommodation that we're always asking profs to do. However, in post-secondary, when you may be in a class of 500-600 students, having that actually written down is important, because our students may hear, yes, that's a great answer, don't forget that, but have no idea what the peer had said from across the room. Talking to our students about the difference in note-taking, talking to them about reduced course load and the tuition accommodations around that, and as well housing and residence, because there's a lot of our students who are still being woken up by their parents, which is nothing wrong with that, but talking to them about the bed shakers and different options of waking themselves up in post-secondary, as well as the strobe lights for the fire alarm if they're in residence, as well as in their own housing. Talking to them about the documentation, and then again, hearing aids, CIs, and FMs. And then the last slide is just some resources that we would go through with our students. So that is a lot of information. We did our best to contact as many institutions as we could, given our time frame, and just gather as much information as we could. I don't know if there are any questions that anybody may have.
Does anybody have? Yeah, Rhonda, I'm sorry, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I'm just curious about why some of the institutions didn't participate.
One for, I'm trying to remember which one. One didn't have an accessibility manager at the time, so they were in the process of trying to hire an individual, and they just said they didn't know enough in that area, which we pushed as much as we could. And other institutions, we sent several emails, and they either tried to respond to a couple things in the email and didn't want to meet.
Or they just didn't respond at all. We had some just no responses. We would try another contact and still no response. So they just weren't interested. Or we weren't contacting the right people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I have a follow-up question, if I may.
Of course.
So now that you have this information, would you be guiding our students on what direction, what institutions they could be looking at, or no?
I don't think it's up to us. We could, if they're, that's really tricky, because we don't want to be telling them strongly suggesting where they went. If they were coming down to 2 institutions and the exact same program at both institutions, we would give them the information that they needed on both institutions and let them decide for themselves. I don't think it's up to us to tell them, but we could give them the information and then just let them explore and make their own decision after hearing, you know, what they each have to offer.
Okay. Fair. Thank you.
Cassandra, you had your hand up?
I did. I don't have a question, but I just wanted to add on to what Sandra was saying, because I don't know if it was communicated at the top, but we have shared this information within the board. So we've had presentations with other department heads, with other certs and resources, and then in some administrative circles, we'll be giving some, just like a Cole's notes, that's how old I am, version of some of the information so that it can help with those conversations at the school level, for example, with guidance, so that this information doesn't just rest as a research project, but it informs some next steps and helps to have those conversations at the school, the secondary school levels. So we wouldn't be encouraging or discouraging from any particular institution, but I think it's important information to know so that we can give informed updates, or at least informed guidance to the students.
So a couple of questions. So you answered a little bit of it, Cassandra, but I was going to say, like, where is this information housed? Because I have to say that this is, I don't know, Maria will be with me on, this is like my 11th year on SEAC, something like that. This is the first time I've ever seen a presentation that talks about post-secondary, what it looks like, what that planning looks like, what are the pieces that are involved with it, how these items might support a student that is going that route. Like, this is completely, other people can put their hand, this is completely foreign information. I've never seen this. I've never seen anything like this. There's never been these discussions that I'm aware of at the at this secondary school level in these preps. So there's a lot of information here that I think parents would want to dig into, understand more about. You know, the concept about having to contact a physician or an audiologist or a developmental pediatrician, whoever that might be, to get that information. Like, there's a lot of pieces here that I think people need to know in advance of that so they can make those plans, as well as they're starting to formulate those thoughts on where they might want their student to go, to take a look at those functional ability, like all these pieces. So I guess it's like, where are you housing this? Are we going to see a cert? Are we going to see other certs? Is this going to apply to other exceptionalities? Like, where are you going with this? Because this is really important and nothing I have seen before in this type of formalized capacity.
Well, I was just going to say it was very interesting for us, and that's why we asked Denise and Cassandra if we could dig deeper and contact these institutions on our board's behalf just to start the research.
Yeah.
So we're presenting this, but we're just putting it all together now. Like, we had completed the meetings between February and April and then had the first presentation in May. So we're just gathering all the information and put it into a PowerPoint to present before the end of this school year. So I appreciate all your questions, and we are very, very thankful to both Denise and Cassandra for allowing us to do this research. And then I know Denise is going to continue, or I think you had your hand up, Denise, right? Did you want to add to that, or?
Is that okay, Brenda?
Yeah, no, of course, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think both Cassandra and I are like, when we first heard the presentation, we're like, ping, 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 ping. There's all these ideas of what we should do with this information in particular. I think because our DHH community at the board is relatively small and tight knit, I do envision that we will have information that we can push out to them, but also maybe host a Teams call for parents of students, parents and students, in grade 10, 11, and 12. Once a year, so that they can also hear the presentation live and ask some questions to give context to some of the information that gets pushed out. I think that we can't give too much information to our families when they're looking, or give it too soon. How this looks in terms of delving into other exceptionalities and supports, I'll leave to Cassandra.
Yeah, I think the advantage of coming into a new board and having opportunities to work with new people is what you say yes to things and you don't really know what the impact is going to be. And so it was like, of course, this sounds great. Let's pursue it. And I've heard this presentation several times now, and every time I'm like, oh, it's so good. The information is so good, so valuable, and it really does drive at least the point home that we have that impact beyond our schools, our elementary and secondary schools. It could be one of those projects that scratches the surface of other projects, but I have to admit that it was the idea of both Vanessa and Sandra who came up with wanting to pursue this. And that's the kind of, like those genius hours, that's the kind of, impact that can come from an idea if they have the space and time to do so. So that is a hope that this is part of a bigger picture and part of that transition post-secondary. But we're so happy that this information is so well received, because like Denise and I, we were like, what? What? This is amazing. So I think I'm saying thank you for your positive feedback, and thank you for your willingness to hear this information and appreciate the impact and the potential of the project. So
I have more comments, but Maria, I see you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead?
I just wanted to comment that, yeah, like this is pretty neat. It's definitely a direction that I've never seen before, and I think it's very valuable information for families for sure. And it would be great to see it broadened out, right, to other exceptionalities and whatnot. I would think that the board would want to be cautious in terms of anything that would sort of influence students to go to one university or another, like unless they're specifically asking maybe, about what the supports are like. I mean, just because the school didn't respond doesn't necessarily mean that the supports aren't there. I would just think the board would want to be careful about that. My alma mater responded, so that's great, woohoo. But I just think that's an area to be kind of cautionary about. And also, like when kids are going off to university, there's a lot of things to consider, right? So I just would be careful about any kind of influence in that way. I just want to kind of share that feedback.
No, and I totally agree with you. And that's why some of the main points that came out of it with regards to the functional limitations, knowing what the accommodations that students need, knowing where their challenges are, knowing where they may have difficulty and where they may flourish, helping them look at those specifically will help when they do go to post-secondary in knowing what they need to be successful. The other thing about the interpreter fund, that is something that we didn't know about. So if students need note takers and the institution is saying, no, we can't afford it or we don't have it, then they can say, well, what about this interpreter fund? The ministry funds, has funds for this. So just knowing those bigger umbrellas to help the students so they are going a little bit better informed and having a little bit more information.
Yeah, that's absolutely fabulous for sure. No question there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the point that I was going with, Sandra. Like there, definitely the research piece is important. And to me, it's you have to sit down, you have to have a conversation with your family. What's a good fit for your child? They go and they tour schools, all of those pieces. But I mean, I'm taking a look at funding we didn't know existed, functional checklists we didn't know existed. Like there's resources there that people have never seen. And this is a huge gap. I hear quite often from families who, when they get to this piece in secondary school, they're lost. There's not a whole lot available to them about what comes next, what's available next, what do they need to be preparing for. Again, just the fact that, they need to contact, especially if they're changing ages, right? Because that's going to impact their access possibly to some of those audiologists and some of those other pieces. So if you have a student who's turning 19, so what I talk about, access to information, there's a lot of great data there, a lot of great resources that I think could be broadly shared that wouldn't actually matter what your exceptionality was. The information on OSAP, the information on some of those other funds that I think would be really important for people to know when they're doing their planning. So I think those are the pieces I'd like to see us find a way to share, a little broader, because I actually hear quite often that there's students with disabilities whose families don't pursue post-secondary because they don't think that any of these resources and supports are available for them. And that's, that's a shame, right?
Yeah, because there's a lot of accommodations and a lot of resources. But if the students don't know what to ask for, then it makes it a little bit more challenging. And yeah, the accessibility form is for all disabilities.
Right.
It's not just for DHH.
Yeah. Sorry, Brianna, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, just two things. One thing I wanted to know was how realistic is it to continue investigating along the same lines for other exceptionalities? So broadening it out, so how realistic would it be for our board and our small little team that we do have to continue doing it? And I just want to also just touch on what Brenda said, just my own life experience. I'm planning post-secondary, and we got there to say that my son can't go to post-secondary because of his needs. And I was like, whoa, wait a second here, right? Like that can't be the case. And as a parent, I had to do the phone calling and calling places. And it's interesting, I learned a lot of the same information you shared kind of fell over for children who are on the spectrum. So there was a lot of, scribing and note taking and all of these things that I didn't know existed when he would get to post-secondary, even the support staying, on campus and all of that, right? That isn't readily available. And, I had to spend the time. It was a full-time job calling these places, right? So how do we share this with parents and broaden it, right? Just so those were my questions.
I'm so used to jumping in person, so now I have to wait.
You can jump in. You can jump in.
And like I said, I appreciate all I personally was really impressed with this information and felt that this was the perfect forum to start those discussions. So, we're really proud of this work. I'm really proud of the research that went into it, the time that went into it. And the intent is, of course, for it to help and inform next steps and supporting students in their portfolio. Will Sandra and Vanessa both support DHH, but it does have implications further than that we're really happy to hear is filling a void. And so we've just scratched the surface, I think, of what we can do with this information, where we can take it. I think that there's some partnerships and some synergies, even within the board, some of the other portfolios within the superintendents. There's lots of potential. We have just begun. But like I said, it's just really exciting to receive this information, to see this information, and also to be, to see your initial impressions of the work that was done. Tells us that we're on the right path, and that there's encouragement to continue. So I'm really appreciative of all the work that went into it, and of course this really valuable feedback.
And I appreciate you saying about continue, because I think that's a huge value for families in our board, because many families think or hear their kids can't go on to post-secondary because there's all these barriers that we perceive in place already for them. So to find out there is support or other avenues around it, I think is fantastic for our board, to just another layer to support our parents and our families and our community, and doing what maybe other boards are not doing at this time. So thank you so much.
Rhonda, you had your hand up. Do you have another question, comment?
Yeah, I do. I think it's really great. So Sandra, you had mentioned about that you may be having like a parent night or like an online sort of information night for parents, like a webinar. Yeah.
I think Denise had mentioned that as a possibility.
Sorry. Oh, I really think that's a good idea. And
we signed up. We've signed you up.
My son's attended 2 institutions now, and the difference has been remarkable in terms of the success. So, and the accommodations, and we've walked through all these hoops. So it's been really remarkable. And to have had this information in grade 10, 11, because it comes up fast, right? For our kids. And I do like the idea of what Brianne is on about expanding this to, other exceptionalities and having an information night or like a parent information night to help parents transitioning, because it's really daunting. And there are, you learn so much. And even when you're in the moment, it's still a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was going to say as well, like even in some of the implications, even when we have information sessions or when we have universities and colleges come out, who are we inviting, and so that even is part of the conversation that I think will continue, is just making sure that we think we have representation, but now that we are asking the right questions and getting, further down what I call a rabbit hole, like there's an opportunity as well to just ensure that we're casting a wide net when we're having speakers come in or anyone coming from post-secondary schools, so that we are, getting updates and getting that information to those that need it the most.
We've also gathered a list of individuals that we've spoken to who are a wealth of knowledge at the different institutions as well.
Yeah, that's probably been one of the most valuable things almost, Sandra, is just that we now have these contacts that we can reach out to. If we have a student who is interested in a particular university, we know exactly who to get in touch with.
And some of them have summer programs that students can attend. Yeah.
Jen, you had your hand up?
Thanks, Brenda. Yeah, I just wanted to say too, we're also, you were mentioning it in a broader sense, we're actually digging into learning ourselves as well. We don't know a lot of this information. This year, we've collaborated with RARC, which is the Regional Assessment and Resource Center. It's out of Queen's University. And they came in and presented to all of our certs about accommodations and things that are available to our special education students in post-secondary environments, so at university. So that certs when, they're working with families. We did this with our department heads as well, so that when they're working with families on transitions, they're able to have some of that knowledge as part of that transition meeting. And we also took a group of department heads as well as some guidance counselors, because we're really trying to strengthen that collaboration between spec ed and our guidance department. So we actually went out to see some of the CICE program at Mohawk to really understand what a post-secondary option for our life skills students might look like. So we're trying to look at it in terms of both our, special education students in our general population, as well as secondary or post-secondary opportunities for students in our life skills program. So we really took our first step in learning about that this year as well. So those were 2 big presentations we had this year that we've been able to share with department heads too.
Okay, I don't see any more hands up. You can tell we were super excited about that one. Thank you for that presentation. That was excellent. Very, very appreciative of the information itself, but just the work that you're doing and the idea behind this, and just the initiative that was taken to do this. So thank you so much. We look forward to any updates, or as you move this through, if we can help, please let us know. That was fantastic. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Absolutely. We'll hope to see you back.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks, you as well. Okay, I'm just trying to do my split screen here. Margaret, do you mind just going up a little bit for me for a second? Sorry. All right, so I just need the, you know what it is? I'll pull up. I just need the agenda. Hold on. Okay, perfect. I just don't want to have too many screens open because I know I'm going to click the wrong thing. Okay, so thank you. So approval of the minutes, and I know that you did have those up there. So the minutes would have been in your package as well for the meeting. Hopefully everybody had a chance to take a look at those. Did anybody have any questions or comments with respect to the minutes of the meeting? No? Okay, if I could get someone to move to approve the minutes.
I can, Brenda. Brianna.
Thank you, Brianna. Yep. So moved by Brianna. Do I have a seconder?
Rhonda.
Amanda, thank you so much. Seconded by Amanda. Okay. Margaret, I'm making you do double duty here. Summary of outstanding items is there as well. That would have been in your package also. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? If not, we'll go to the next piece. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. So I'm going to hand this over to Cassandra, but this is policy II-29. It was there was some back and forth. This has gone out to our members of SEAC for their review and participation. This will be coming to an upcoming policy meeting. So here it is here. You would have all received it. Happy to open up for conversation, but I'll put that over to you, Cassandra, if you want to start that discussion.
Yeah, so this policy is a review of the inclusion and range of placement options for identified exceptional children or students. Our biggest scope of work was just to make sure that we were still in alignment with what the ministry captures as far as identified and exceptional student. And so the changes really were minimal. The bulk of the work has really been, because it does connect to our special education plan. And so the bulk of the work is actually in updating our special education, the plan that we're working on, just to ensure that that is as accurate and capturing the work that we're doing. I think there's been a few meetings with SEAC input. I know that there's been some interdepartmental meetings around that as well. But if you scroll down, Margaret, you'll see that the changes really, the policies haven't changed. Our references haven't changed. So that's always a good sign. Our definitions and our principles haven't changed. Those are still consistent and keep up with the cycle. There really wasn't a lot of addition. I know that we've included the types of placement options. Those are still relevant and up to date. So it is a minimally changed policy as it is before you. I don't know that we received any questions around some of the content, but this one is a really robust policy and it stands over the course of the cycle.
All right, great. So I'm going to open it up. If there's any questions or comments with respect, any feedback with respect to this policy. Yeah, Maria, go ahead.
Hi, so I did submit some feedback. I sent it in today through the Google Forms. I'm not really clear on what the process is, like where that form is going and whatnot, but I will go through quickly what I had in the form as well. Also, there was some back and forth. I didn't have a chance to reply again today, but I never saw a red line version of this policy, so I don't know if like I'm somehow missing something, but what's in the package, I don't see the red lines. Now, Margaret has been very helpful and patient with me, but I'm still not seeing it. She sent me a PDF today. I still didn't see the red lines, but if I downloaded it, I could see like red lines in the left margin, but it doesn't show me what's changing. Like when the policies go to the trustees, you know, if something's coming out, they're struck out. If something's being added, it's underlined. I didn't see anything like that. So that makes it difficult for us to really, I know you're saying there's minimal changes to it, And yes, I see Mark has her,
Yeah.
but I just, it's hard to comment if we don't see what's actually being changed. So Margaret had her hand
Because
up.
nothing has been changed yet.
Nothing was
Nothing has
changed.
been changed.
Oh,
So it's
what
not
you're
you.
seeing,
It's
yeah, that is all. So see where
okay.
Claudia changed the date, and Claudia, that's why when you saw it, Maria, you were correct. There's nothing.
Okay, so because I never got that response, I just got, well, try this, try that. So I kept trying and I kept looking.
Now
But
I
like
know what you mean. My apologies. Now I know what you mean. My apologies.
Okay. Yeah, and when I
Yeah.
did download it, I saw like something in the margins, but then it didn't show what was changing. Anyways, so that's one. I guess
did
that's one
get
thing.
yeah, and Maria, I did get your feedback.
Okay.
And with regards to the actual policy, like I said, we're not in the position where we're trying to be compliant with a new memorandum or a new policy that the ministry has released. So we're compliant. And I think that some of the feedback that you did share actually speaks more to the special education plan. So I'm not trying to be, withhold the feedback or the commentary, but I wanted it to, ensure that we were talking about the actual policy in the way that it is, again, the compliance factor and the way the ministry has kind of prescribed the categories, the placement options, the levels, like the exceptionalities. So.
Okay. So, and I do get that it's sort of works sort of hand in hand with the plan, and like, is this a plan question or is this a policy question? Like, I do understand that.
Yeah.
But if I can share kind of what I shared with the group, since the document just went to, I guess, yourself or whatever, but and then, if others want to comment on it, I just want to put it out in the sort of the public sphere. So there's a couple of small things. So and the links to the Spec Ed plan actually right now link to the 2020 plan. So I don't know if that's been fixed. Because I noticed originally some of the PPM links weren't working, but then when I went back, they were. So just to make sure it's actually linking to the current version of the plan. And at the end where it says, like, here's where you can find the placements that we currently offer, it just goes to the front page of the plan. So it might be helpful if you're not able to link to the exact page, but to say, like, see page, whatever. Because those of us that are familiar with the plan, like, it's super easy to figure out where it is, right? But maybe not for everybody. So that might be something helpful to put in there. And under the requirements, there's a bunch of PPMs that are referenced. It might be helpful to link those as well. Like, they're just kind of in brackets, but maybe links there what might be helpful. And under principles, the fourth bullet, it talks about the appropriateness of the placement, or I think it's the appropriateness of the placement, and it's in quotations. So like when something's in quotations, that has a certain connotation that I don't think applies here. I'm not sure why those quotations are there. Maybe they could just be removed, or if there's some clarification that's needed around that word, maybe that could be provided. And as well, it talks about different parties that are included in the collaborative sharing of relevant information. And I'd like to see students included there. Students are not currently included. The Act does require when students are 16 to be part of the process. So maybe something like students, where appropriate, and in any case where they're over 16 years of age or something. Because even younger students sometimes could be, they understand their needs well enough that they could and should be part of the process, I think. But definitely when they're 16, they're actually required to be included in the process, unless they don't want to be, I guess, right? So I'd like to see that added. And I guess the other thing, it's sort of an overriding thing to us, is right at the start, the policy says the purpose of the policy is to provide students identified as exceptional with a full range of placements. But we don't actually provide a full range of placements for all students, for all exceptionalities, for all grades, right? So I feel like that's a little misleading, not accurate. It doesn't actually align with our practices, right? So, either the policy wording needs to change, or we need to change our practices to align with what we're saying in the policy. What's the process? What's the process that we determine which placements we are going to offer. I'm not sure what that process is. If there's, you know, is it reviewed periodically? The standards for spec ed plans do say that our spec ed plan should indicate how SEAC is involved in providing advice on that. And I looked quickly, I didn't see that in our plan. So maybe that's something to consider, like how do we review this and how do we make sure SEAC's included? You know, and how can the policy maybe be better worded to reflect what is offered? I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. So.
Thank you.
And I guess sorry, and I guess just I know the Google form. I know Cassandra, you said you received it. So will that go to trustees? Like, I'm not sure what the process is with that Google form.
We use it as an internal document. We're not, you know, we're trying to solicit as much feedback in a way that captures everyone's voice. And sometimes we recognize that sometimes in a meeting that some voices may be more dominant or more prevalent than others. So, you know, we have the technology, we've been using it in that capacity. However, if that's not something, you know, want to go forward that's working, we're certainly open to how to receive the feedback. And then we use that when we meet with there's an actual official policy working group. So we provide feedback and at the end of the day, make determinations based on all the stakeholders and what meets the needs of the board. So that the actual, if that's something that you want shared verbatim, the feedback usually at the board table or when we do go to a policy meeting, that's where discussion or questions might take place, but we don't submit all the feedback in a document. We incorporate what feedback we did receive, and that's the final presentation. But if there's another way that feedback can be shared, we're open to hearing it. It's just as we're kind of getting through our first year, we're seeing what works and seeing what things we want to improve upon or change direction. So
I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I just was trying to understand it because it is new. So I just wanted to understand it. That was just why I was asking. Yeah, it wasn't a criticism, I promise.
No. And I'm honestly, like I said, we're trying to figure out which way allows for the choice and the voice of everyone in the SEAC committee, for example, to be heard. And I'm sure in other portfolios, they may capture the data in different ways, but so thank you for that. And I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Brenda.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing where, you know, there's feedback that is sent from other members as well at SEAC. And so that could be similar feedback. It might be different feedback. And so again, you know, we provide the feedback to those staff members who are working to update these policies or make these changes to policies. And, you know, it's that, you know, it is feedback. And I do anticipate that staff will take that, see where it makes sense, see if it fits. Perhaps there's a reason why it's not in there that we don't have a fulsome discussion about it this time. But just appreciating the opportunity to send it in. And I do know that if it does make sense or if it is missing or if there is a gap or it does have to be in there, that staff is pretty good about putting that in. So I do thank everybody who's taken the time to review not just this policy, but any of the policies that we put forward to provide that feedback so that staff can have that additional information, because things do get missed or sometimes there's a different lens that's taking a look at this, and it is always really, really helpful. So thanks again to everybody that provided feedback on this policy. Okay. Okay, perfect. So action and information items. We do not have any action items this evening. Board committee updates. So we have an update from the Halton Down Syndrome Association. So I will turn it over. Let me just mute. Okay, Mandy, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. We're excited because it's our annual walk for Down syndrome. We hold this walk every year at the Milton Fairgrounds. We've had incredible turnouts in the past, and we anticipate we will again. Typically around 1,000 celebrants come on out. So we have our VIPs who are our attendees who have Down syndrome, and their families, their cheerleaders, their friends, their supporters. We have some people walking just as a small family unit and others who come with 30 to 50, friends and family in a large group. All of them celebrating and raising funds and awareness for Down syndrome. So just, like many of our walks that are in the community and for all exceptionalities, it's a big highlight for the year. So the funds raised during the walk obviously go towards Halton Down Syndrome Association and will help support the different programs that we run. There's a different peer groups. So you have the newbies who come out or junior groups where you have parents meeting with each other and learning about everything that they need to know as they get started on the journey. And then we have our elementary groups, high school groups who are doing social outings and peer mentoring and workshops together and things like that, all the way to our high school graduates and beyond. So the walk really does support the entire organization and our members. So we have over 150 members at this time in Halton Region. So we're really excited. It's taking place on June 8th. So I think that's 2 Saturdays from now. And we actually had a spot that we secured for the first time on CTV last week that aired. So that was really exciting for us. And we're starting to gain momentum and recognition. Many of the mayors support us and come out as well to the walk. And Adam Van Couverden, who was an Olympic medalist and supporter and also member in the Milton Parliament, always comes out to support us and hands out medals to the celebrants, and many others come out as well. So we're excited. There's some details here for you. We've got our links if people want to sign up, if you want to donate, if people want to sponsor. So I know that this was posted. And we also have our swag bags, which I have to say are a real highlight for everybody. And we've had multiple supporters, I guess, from everything from special creams that help kids with eczema, which a lot of our kids happen to have different skin conditions, or special foods, dietary restrictions, and just fun things like Schwarzkopf is a major sponsor for us with hair care products. And it's just a lot of fun, and it makes it exciting for the families and the people that come out. They go home with a little bit of a goodie bag, sunscreen, and things like that. So that's also really fun, and another way that the community has rallied behind this walk and supported us. So if anyone has any questions, let me know. Myself and Marianne are happy to answer any questions, but all the information's in the report in terms of how you could sign up or support. And we're just really excited. And I'm sure I'll have some post-walk pictures to share and videos, but it's always a good time.
Thank you so much, and kudos to the association. I've seen this walk grow year over year over year, not just from the number of participants, but the amount of money, that you raise, the awareness that you raise, the people that are involved with it. So, these are not easy. They're not always sustainable. These often can fall off. So, to see the magnitude of the participation and to see this grow is quite tremendous, to be honest. So good for you guys. Kudos to you guys.
No, thank you. Thanks on behalf of HDSA. There's an incredible team of people, and there's some people who are back every year, and then other people who, jump in various years, and it's 100% a team effort. And the day of, there are literally about 100 volunteers that come out, even just before the walk starts, to get it set up and going, and many different organizations who help us out between the barbecue and, all the other things that are going on. It's quite the big event. So thank you. We appreciate it, and we're looking forward to a really great year again.
Yeah, absolutely. And please do share photos after. Please, please, please.
We will.
We want to see how it goes.
100%. We will.
Is there any questions at all, or any comments at all with respect to Mandy's presentation? No? Okay, great. Thank you again. And thanks again. Reminder to anybody, any of your associations, if you have anything going on, anything that's happening, anything you want to talk about, share, please bring that forward, because we definitely want to hear about it. And, then we can discuss it. It gets out into the open air, and it's always a great way to build awareness and just talk more about the associations that you represent. Next we have everyone's wearing red shirt. Next we have our Eat Your Soul's Red Shirt video. So thank you to Amanda for sharing this. Amanda asked if we could play this, given that it is National Accessibility Awareness Week this week, and it is Red Shirt Day happening on Wednesday. So go ahead, Margaret.
In today's world, school isn't just about attending class. School is where we learn about the world around us, make friends, figure out who we are, and take our first steps toward becoming the amazing adults we are meant to be. Hi, my name is Chloe, and I am a student in grade 7. I was born with a spinal cord injury that affects how I can move my body, so I use my power wheelchair to get around. My body might work a bit differently, but I'm still just like any other kid. And guess what? There are thousands of other kids in Ontario, just like me, who have different disabilities. Some have physical differences, some think differently, and some might face challenges with seeing or hearing. We all have hopes and dreams, and we want to come to school for the same reasons. But you see, for kids like me and the thousands of others across Ontario, school needs to be a little different. It needs to be accessible and inclusive. Why? Because we deserve the same opportunities as everyone else. We want to learn, play, and dream big just like you do. That's why accessibility and inclusion in schools are so important. It's about making sure that everyone, regardless of their abilities, can have the same chances to succeed, and we can all do our part to help make our school environments more welcoming and inclusive for every single student. The first step is learning why accessibility and inclusion matters so much. So I'd like to introduce you to my friend Shamil, who will share his experience with us.
My name is Shamil. I'm in grade 10. I go to John Fisher Secondary School. I'm a big chemistry person, and the chemistry lab is on the upper floor, it's on the second floor. So having the elevator so that I can go upstairs to the lab is a big part of my social interaction, because I can go into the lab, meet people with my same interest so that I can make new friends, see new things, and learn new experiences. Everybody can see how independent I am. But yeah, sometimes they will not ask if I want help, and they'll just jump in and help. So that's something I have to clarify myself a lot. That like, hey, if I need help, I'll let you know. You don't need to jump in prior to me asking. When I graduated in 2022 from grade 8, the school was so great. We had to go up on stage, and I was wondering how was I gonna get up on stage. So I was thinking maybe the teacher was gonna come down from the stage, and maybe I was gonna go to the side, and maybe he'll just hand me my diploma and we'll go and take my pictures. But what I didn't know was that Thomas Street Middle School had actually arranged an elevator so that I could go up on the stage and get my diploma, get it from my teacher, shake his hand, and be with all my peers. So that is something I'll never forget, and I will forever be grateful. In my experience, educating people has been the most helpful way. So what they can do is host seminars or host events where they can teach kids and teens about disabilities and different types of disabilities and how to behave around them, how to be patient, how to give them space, like not to block the hallways or like to bump the kids, because they're kids, you know? So how to behave in a way that's acceptable. I think the reason why it's so important to have accommodation for kids with disabilities is because we want to be like every other kid. We don't want to feel left out. We want to be like the able-bodied. We don't want to have the barrier between disabled and able-bodied. We want to be one so that we can feel included, be one ally, and we can make lifelong friends and lifelong memories at school. Accessibility might seem like a huge task, but start with a small thing like seeing if the automatic buttons work, see if there are ramps in place that needs to be ramped, see if the elevator is working. The small steps make the greater difference.
Thanks, Shamil. As a person with a disability, it can be difficult to function in a world that isn't designed for how your mind or body work. For kids like Shamil and me, we might need things like ramps, sign language, or extra support to participate in school. It's like getting the right tools to play a game. Everyone should have the tools they need to join in and enjoy the fun. And that's where equity comes in. Equity is about making sure that everyone has a fair shot, even if they need different tools or adaptations. It's like making sure the game is fair for everyone, no matter their abilities. So when we work together to make our schools accessible and inclusive, we're not just helping kids with disabilities, we're creating a fair and equal playing field for all students. And that's something pretty amazing. Now, let's keep learning about what we can do to make our schools welcoming and inclusive spaces for students of all abilities. I'd like to introduce you to my friend Horlane.
My name is Horlane. I'm currently in my first year of college. The most effective way to achieve inclusion and accessibility through my experience has just been like constantly shining a light on it so that it doesn't become something that, okay, I talk about it once and then I'm gonna, make an effort and then all of a sudden it's gone. Like, remember that this is an issue that can only be solved when people come together and people decide to make a conscious effort to drive towards greater change. I think it really, again, does take a lot of time. The biggest thing is like the willingness to listen to the people who have the information and the willingness to say, oh, I made a mistake. I didn't know this information, but I'm going to make a conscious effort to make sure that this is something that we strive towards. Throughout my years and stages of education, I have definitely experienced misconceptions about my disability, and as like someone who lives with a disability, I've had certain experiences like teachers don't even address me with certain questions, assuming that, I can't respond for myself. I had one instance where I was told that there's no way that I could do a certain assignment because it looked too good for someone like me to do it. In terms of addressing situations like this, I feel like it's just all about finding a way to speak up and say, I am much more than my disability in whatever shape or form that it is, and if I have to do things a little differently, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be successful in the end. I think teachers may not know how to address a student who has a disability of any kind. Seeing students with disabilities in their classrooms shouldn't be like such a shock. Understanding that people with disabilities are also capable of being in a classroom with other people and capable of succeeding in education. Some people say like the chair that's the problem, or the walker that's the problem, or whatever it may be, but it's in reality it's the environment. Having an education is a basic human right for every single person, and it shouldn't be that we eliminate a certain group of people because they don't fit with society standards of whatever normal is. And it just takes a little bit of the willingness to open your ears and your eyes to listen to the people who have the information to give you, to make sure that you are making your environment the most welcoming and safe place for all people.
Thanks, Orlane. Now, let's take some time to hear from Grayson and his mom, Linda, to learn about how we can support students with disabilities.
My name is Linda Cluche. My youngest son's name is Grayson. He's 8 years old and he attends James R. Henderson Public School. He is in grade 3. Grayson has a rare chromosome disorder. So it is a deletion of his 15th chromosome inherited from mom. So that is called Angelman syndrome. He has seizures. He's nonverbal and does not have the ability to walk on his own. With the devices that Grayson has, and he's very lucky that he has quite a few options to choose from, this allows him to not only attend school, but to actually participate in school, just like his peers. As a parent, you're always feeling, oh my gosh, the wheelchair is going to be so cumbersome, or the stroller and what you have to do to set it up, or transferring him from one, because you have to be very careful. And everybody makes everything so fun, but when you have a special needs child, you're always wanting to ensure that they have every tool accessible to them. There have been many times where I'll just get a phone call or an email saying, can you sign off on this? We're getting Grayson this new piece of equipment, which is just incredible to know that they're moving along with him. He's got support in the school, the OTs, the PTs. They make it happen. I think one that definitely resonates is Special Olympics. He got to go and perform in his first Special Olympics last year, which was incredible, and he got to perform in every single event. There wasn't anything that he was excluded from. He had the most incredible day. And then for me to see him coming to that finish line, being supported by the right people to ensure that my son could get to the finish line was just incredible. And he got his first ribbons, and we look forward to all the other Special Olympics that he'll be able to go to. I think the fact that Henderson does not mandate that children like Grayson have to go into a special room, that these children have choices to be included in their classroom with their peers, it allows there not to be that stigma of asking questions. Children at a young age need to know why their friends are different. Why does Grayson need a wheelchair? And this school allows that safe space to have those conversations, so children are being educated on the importance of accessibility and what that means for their friends.
So I'm gonna, it's obviously a super impactful video and it goes quite a bit longer. And I don't want to take up too much time from everybody's evening. So please, the link will be sent out. If it hasn't been sent out, please take a look. I've had the privilege of working with some of those young East Steels ambassadors. They are exactly as they are on there. They can move a room of 1,000 people to tears. They can have people leaving and saying, what can we be doing better? So I think it's a really important message that we continue to promote and be inspired by, students who, kids who are impacted, who are speaking about it so eloquently and so importantly. So anyways, take a chance to watch the rest of it if you can. The messaging never gets old, and it applies right across our communities and our schools. So thank you, Amanda, for sharing that with us and having us watch that. I think it was perfect for Accessibility Awareness Week. So thank you for that. So communication to SEAC, we are moving to item number 9.1. Trish, over to you.
We can't hear you, Trish. We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you. I would offer for Cassandra to go first, but then you'll be all mad because she'll have everything on her report. Cassandra, do you want to go ahead and present first if you're ready, and then Trish will join us after when she gets her headphones? Is that okay?
That's totally fine. I was going to say I can have Trish I can call her and put her on speaker, and then we can hear it through one a voice. But
that's all right.
I have no problem.
Go ahead. She'll jump in.
Okay, let me pull up my report. Okay, I wasn't ready. Here we go. Let me do 1 second. Now I see you.
It's also on the screen if that helps, Cassandra.
Oh, yes, that does, but that's okay. Okay, so we're at May 27th. Amazing. And of course, earlier this month, we recognized Dress Loud Day. This week, we're at the kickoff of our National Accessibility Week. And of course, that video really does drive the point home as to why we do what we do and how important these days are. Last week, we were asked to do a presentation to the Board of Trustees, and we talked about the Best Buddies dance and really, made sure that we highlighted all the amazing work that was being done in support of our students in life skills or in secondary school who would like the opportunity and who would benefit from the opportunity of the Best Buddies, the spring dance that we had. And so it was quite an honor to present and know that that's an initiative that came out of our conversations at SEAC. This week or this month, we received a retirement notice, and I know Patricia Codner has been a member within the Halton Catholic District School community in her capacity as a lead in social work for, I believe it's 15 years. And so she has put in her retirement and will be retiring at the end of this school year as well. So just in awe of the work that's being done and lucky to have had the opportunity to work with her as a department. We're very fortunate, and it's going to be a big loss, but we want to wish her well and have an opportunity for SEAC to share in those well wishes. From the ministry, so Maxie has asked for some feedback from SEACs across the province on artificial intelligence, AI. And so that feedback will be, I guess, presented at the upcoming meeting. I don't have the date. I can make sure that the date's included for everyone's reference. And I don't know if, Brenda, you're going to be there to kind of engage in some of that conversation, but they're seeking some feedback and some input on the benefits and some of the drawbacks of AI, and want to help kind of drive those conversations. And then you would have heard we've received some, communication from the Ministry of Education around cell phone uses in schools. And we know that it's a great and valuable tool. And for many of our students with diverse needs, it's an essential tool. So we're having conversations around what the interpretation of some of those policy mandate or those ministry mandates and how it'll inform practice in school setting, with, of course, the caveat that we don't want any student to be disadvantaged by this direction in terms of students with diverse or needs that are different and individual to students in our care. This month, there was lots of activity going on in the department. Special Olympics, track and field will take place in a couple of weeks at Notre Dame's Catholic Secondary School in Burlington. And there'll be updates on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter X, and board website for updates if there's any inclement weather. The law enforcement torch run for Special Olympics took place last Thursday. Brenda and I were crisscrossing each other last week trying to get to all the activities that were taking place, and really fortunate that we were able to support and have such a great turnout and have such fantastic weather. The anti-sex trafficking information session, there was one that took place in February, and I'll be sure to make sure that the flyer goes in the section where it says insert flyer here, so that you have opportunity to engage in the conversation. The first session, there were over 900 families that attended, and right now we have over 700 and still a few weeks out. So it will be hosted in Milton, I believe at BR. So, it's a collaborative effort between Halton District and Halton Catholic and other community agencies. And we know that there are, students within our care that are particularly vulnerable. So we want to make sure that everyone at SEAC is aware that this information is being shared, and hope that it is helpful. Some program updates. The low incident teachers are continuing to receive training from our Learn Style coaches within the classroom. Coaches are supporting the teachers' use of the smart boards and other technological platforms to promote student engagement during their lessons. We also hosted our third A4 CLC for STC, a CLC and life skills teachers on May 7th. Topics included job launch, literacy skill development resources, FedCap, video modeling and CLC, community living Oakville summer programs, VOC Fit, Mohawk programs, and community pathways and CICE and Project Search. The ESC family information sessions for Burlington, Milton, and Georgetown was also held earlier this month on May 7th. We hosted our third ESC CLC on May 9th. Topics included pathways presentations, RARC transition presentations and next steps, E-Light and SIA updates, and information items from our April CERT FOSS meeting and review of IEPs. We also hosted a special education department head meeting. Topics included the presentation that we heard today, the DH8 services for students in college and university, and a presentation from Thomas Merton on opportunities for students graduating from our secondary schools. And we purchased just recently the Wilson Just Words as a Tier 2 reading intervention program for all schools. And the training session, the first training session rather, has been completed, and there are 3 more sessions to be completed by the end of May. We also attended OCASE, where we received updates from the Ministry of Education, received presentations on legal matters in education, conversations around evidence-based math, and presentations and a panel discussion on kindergarten transitions. And I'm just going to say that our very own Denise Coley was part of the panel and did a fantastic job. Our faith, we awaited Pentecost, and now we're in the season, and we're approaching June, and we know that there's lots of activity that goes on in June. Aboriginal month, the month that recognizes Pride, and there's a number of other activities that kind of keep us busy throughout the month of June, and we continue to support all of our students that are in our care. The DHH picnic happened on May 22nd. It was attended by 52 students who are fantastic. I was able to attend, and just an amazing opportunity and experience for students to collaborate, to network, to make connections, and a real testament to the work that we do. And so I was really honored to have been able to attend. From our psychology department, our contract assessments, we still have a number of assessments. We're working on the last of the referrals on this funding, and that's really filling the gap because we do have 2.5 vacancies, so full-time employment vacancies, and so the contract assessments are really making sure that the caseloads are being monitored and managed. And for the final section, our CYCs and social work staff will be offering summer support in July and the last week of August 2024 for students currently on caseload. The anti-sex trafficking update appears again, just a reminder, June 13th. And last week, Girls at Bat took place. It's an initiative with Jay's Care, and was a really great opportunity as well to see an opportunity for students come together, build a team, build relationships, and build confidence. And so this initiative works to remove barriers by creating spaces that empower and center the leadership and voices of girls, providing opportunities for them to learn and play sport amongst a resilient and inclusive community. The program changes the game for girls by focusing on 4 key pillars: connection, courage, leadership, and love of sport. The program was implemented by school-based CYCs and educators to increase participation and retention in sport and play. And that took place at Burlington, Oakville, North Halton sites, and over 450 athletes in grade 4 to 6 enjoyed a day of fun, baseball skills, a sense of belonging and school team, and a sincere thank you to the CYC department for taking the lead and providing this amazing program board-wide. And that concludes my presentation. I don't know if there were any questions. I know there are some links that I want to make sure that are updated for your information, but
thank you so much. Is there any questions? Always lots going on. Is there any questions at all for Cassandra on the superintendent's report? No. Okay, perfect. Yeah, just continue to keep us updated. We love hearing all about it. So, and any chance we have to let our SEAC committee know about events that, people can come out and take a look. As you said, I had the advantage, the opportunity to come out and see the torch run and the Girls at Bat, and just they're always bucket filling, right? They're always just great to see, and the excitement and the participation of the staff and all the stuff that goes into the planning. And it's always so great to see. So, perfect. Thank you so much. So Trish, you ready for us?
Think so. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I've had docking station issues all day. It's been like that every meeting. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? So sorry. But I do actually have a few fillers. Thank you. And I didn't hear the start of Superintendent Jack Caldera's, sorry. Did you share about the Best Buddies?
I might have, but okay. You go ahead.
No, that's okay. I ran to grab my headphones from downstairs. So sorry. No, that's okay. I was going to go first and give you one to scratch off your list. So yeah. Okay. So as we know that happened, well, thank you. Superintendent Jack Caldera actually did a really nice presentation at our board meeting on, I believe it was last Tuesday's May 21st. So that was really, really good to hear about the involvement, both with the Best Buddies and the staff, and looking forward to more of that in the fall. So just a couple of things from the trustee table, from the board table. We had policy I-20. This was the integrated accessibility standards, and this policy was brought to the table in May to be reviewed as just part of the regular policy review cycle. There were some minor housekeeping changes made, and it was approved at the May 21st meeting. I thought this one was a good one for SEAC. I'm sure we've referenced it at some point over all of us, I think, in dealing with our different organizations, as it discusses assistive devices, service animals, support people, accessibility standards. So nothing major was changed in it. It was just, like I said, minor housekeeping. We didn't have any concerns at the table, but just something to I guess, share and let you know. The other one was policy II-40, which we discussed at our last SEAC meeting when we were asking for stakeholder feedback. So thank you everybody that did, and I believe Margaret shared that as well. This policy was updated quite a bit. This reflects current and I guess some clarifying language from ministry documents and new ministry language. And that was approved on the May 21st meeting as well. So those are two policies I think we would use a lot here at SEAC, and even just to share with parents. So just 2 points of note, 2 things to note from our end, and that's all I have.
Thank you so much. Is there any questions at all on the trustee report? Oh, good. I promise next time I'll let you go. As long as you don't have tech issues, you can go first, Josh.
I know. Thank you.
But you did manage, like you did. It was still, you still managed to have a bunch
still
of
had a
stuff there. Amazing. Okay. Moving on to item number 10, which is SEAC discussion items or questions. I don't have anything formal with respect to this particular agenda item. Does anybody have anything that they wanted to discuss or have any questions? No? Okay, great. Okay, so moving on to item number 11 is meeting summary and next steps. We have our next agenda, our next meeting, sorry, is on June the 10th. So it's only a few weeks away. It'll be our last meeting of the school year. Always a good meeting. I don't know if the plan is to do a little bit of a wrap up, but we always do some sort of year-end presentation. So we'll see what the meeting holds. So yeah, so Monday, June 10th, hopefully we will be back in person if technology allows for it. Fingers crossed. I'm looking at you, Director Klein. And item number 13 is resolution re-absentee. So Margaret, we received regrets from Jessica. Sorry, you have your hand up, Maria, go ahead.
I do. Sorry, I had a question about the next, I guess, next agenda was where I figured it fit best. I think when we got our plan for the year, we were going to have a presentation on de-streaming. And I think it was, I don't know when it was originally scheduled for, but it was postponed. We're now down to 1 meeting. So are we, I'm just wondering what happened to that presentation? Are we still going to receive it? Because I do think it is a very significant issue that affects students at of all exceptionalities. So I'm just wondering about that. And then I had another question as well.
Currently, we have a budget update scheduled for our next meeting and then a year-end review. I know that de-streaming, as it was being launched, was a topic front of mind, rightfully so. It was a shift and change in from elementary to secondary. And I know that there were a number of presentations that went before SEAC to discuss, but I don't have confirmation of a de-streaming presentation for the last meeting. If this is something that we want to commit to like on an annual basis, that's one thing, but I was hopeful in getting really good topics and we try to arrange in response to what's currently happening. But if it's the will of the group to revisit de-streaming or to continue to have conversations about de-streaming, then that's something that certainly can go on our agenda for the upcoming year. But as we have it right now, we have the presentation on budget, which should be, quite informative and quite topical, given I'm sure the communication, not only you've seen it in the media, but a lot of conversations that are happening on other boards about how budgets are affecting school boards. Certainly could take back that feedback.
Okay, so my next question was going to be about a budget update, because that was another thing that I know we usually have around this time of year. I guess with respect to the streaming, it was on our calendar, I think, for the year that we got at the beginning of the year, which is mainly why I'm asking about it. And And I did ask about it before, and it was like, yeah, and the response was that it would be coming later in the year. We just weren't sure when. So that's why now that we're at the end of the year, I'm asking again. My memory has its days, but I don't remember a significant presentation to SEAC about de-streaming. I could be wrong, but I think it's kind of an ongoing thing for sure, the de-streaming. And I do think there would be some value there and an opportunity to ask questions. There was a de-streaming subcommittee. I was on it, and I guess that's not isn't happening anymore. But I don't think it's something that's like I don't think it's something that might not still have some questions and concerns attached to it, and some, you know, more understanding that we can have around it. So I do think it would be of value. I would like to see it next year if you know, it's too late now for June, but it'd be great to see it next year.
Yeah, definitely take it back.
Did you have another question, Maria?
No, I was going to ask about the budget update, but then Cassandra.
Oh, okay.
Before I asked, yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, great. So just taking a look, sorry, we were on absenteeism. So I think we've only received regrets from Jessica. Is that correct, Margaret?
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, perfect. So if I could just get a resolution to approve the absenteeism for Jessica Lim, if somebody wouldn't mind moving that.
I can move that. It's Maria.
Great, thanks, Maria. And I see you have your hand up, Amanda. Can I put you for a seconder? Okay, great. So seconded by Amanda. Perfect. Okay, and so we will get to our adjournment and our closing prayer. Sorry. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Margaret. If you will all join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Blessed are you, O God of all creation. Each day you spread before us the rich and wonderful diversity of the human family, created in the divine splendor of your love. Fashioned in your image, you call us to love one another with the same tender care with which you brought us to creation. Each one of us is but one small part of the glory that is you. As we serve the students and families of the Halton Catholic District School Board on the Special Education Advisory Committee, fill us with your grace, guide us with your wisdom, and give us the strength and courage to do your work so that it may always be said of our every act, God saw that it was good. And Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I look forward to seeing you in a few weeks, and please have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Brenda.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.